Mad Jack had arrived in Lyeford 2 decades previously with his mother and father, and younger brother. The family name is not known. The family kept to themselves in a small house by the Trinity Woods, quite far from the rest of the town. Jack was seen very rarely, but quickly gained a reputation amongst the town's youth as being unpleasant and unhinged, throwing a dead cat at a boy who picked on him. The cat incident had him removed from the schooling system, and he became a total recluse. Although not an unattractive boy, particularly amongst the Lyeford townfolk, who were notoriously inbred, Jack had often been taunted for being ugly. John Garrow, one of the few children who were friendly to Jack, would later say that Jack had, on many occasions, made the express wish to remove his ugly face and replace it with something pretty. Jack also appeared to have what was likely, possibly unrecognized schizophrenia, often found talking to himself or in hysterics over faces in the lake surface. His father was by no means a cruel man, but we must keep in mind the values of the times were very different to those we look up to now, and when Jack's father beat him for his Cloud Cuckoo Land fantasies, it was out of parental love. Jack clearly did not see it as such, and became hateful towards his own father. The woman of the family was, by all accounts, a wretched mother who adored her second child, but was openly neglectful to Jack. His brother observed and replicated these feelings towards Jack. He was a year younger, but was always the more mature of the two. Some nights it claimed that Jack could be seen entering the now abandoned Lyeford home. At least once it is known that his father forced him out of the house, having had enough of his son's paranoia. On these nights, the unexplained, unmentioned screams of Lyeford Hall were never heard. His strange behavior only worsened. Some recalled seeing Jack drowning rats in the lake. On April 5th, 1780, Jack brought a dog from the woods back to the Lyeford Hall. That night there were no screams. Jack all but lived in the hall at that point, having been rejected by his family, and even by his few friends. John Garrow claimed to have abandoned Jack years earlier after an incident in which Jack cracked his own forehead with a hammer in an attempt to change his facial features. On the overcast, cool morning of April 6, 1780, Mad Jack emerged screaming from Lyeford Hall, a dog's face messily stitched onto his own like a grotesque mask. He first killed an elderly couple in their bed, 3 houses down from the Lyeford house, on what would later become Steinland Street. Jack used a hammer to commit the murder. The next victim was a young mother, asleep with her 4-month-old daughter. Jack would not harm the child in any way, being careful to aim his blows far from the child to kill the woman swiftly, as to not wake up her baby. He did, however, place a small dot of blood upon her eyelids. Jack proceeded to strangle a woman on the path who screamed upon seeing him. The event was witnessed by several residents who watched through their windows. It was claimed that at this point he began to bark like a dog before storming into the nearest home and stabbing Mr. and Mrs. Mons, as well as 3 guests hiding in their upstairs room. All 5 died of their injuries. By this time, the Lyeford police force, a small unpaid group, had entered the Mons house and were advancing upon Jack. In a panic, he flung himself from the window and hit the ground behind the house on his right leg. The bone was seen to tear Jack's skin as it snapped, but Jack was claimed to have no sign he was in pain, and, still barking, he sped away from the Mons house, his right leg twisting and slipping with every step. Garrow alerted the police that Jack would most likely return to his family home. By the time they arrived, he had been and gone, leaving behind 3 corpses and a set of bloody footprints which trailed off into the Trinity Woods. Jack's climactic killing of the family who taught him to hate was his most brutal act. His brother was missing his tongue. It appeared to have been ripped out by a canine teeth. His toes, too, had been removed before he was ultimately killed by asphyxiation. Jack's mother awoke upon hearing the racket in her son's room, and had no time to so much as scream before Jack was upon her, tearing her flesh and ripping off her cheeks. Jack's father suffered the most extensive mutilation, however, much of which is thought to have occurred before death, with Jack keeping his father alive in order to savor his pain. The eyes, lips, and scalp were removed. The left arm was severed and both legs were broken. Most of the internal organs had been crudely gouged out. Shards of glass were found inside the body. Once his father died from his injuries, Jack then cut the body in half with his father's own saw. The atrocious nature of the crime should have been big news. However, the townsfolk did all in their power to keep it unheard out from the outside world. Regardless, word spread of Mad Jack throughout Virginia and Ohio until it was spread in one form or another all throughout America. For weeks, people kept their doors locked and their windows shut at night. The people of Lyeford were given no time to recover. The screaming from Lyeford Hall returned, as usual, every night after Jack's disappearance, lasting several minutes every midnight. The family home was burned down, but Lyeford Hall remained inside an upstairs room. A bizarre shrine was discovered, with incomprehensible writing on the wall and the dog's body lying on the bed. Chunks of flesh had been removed from the bone, seemingly all by human teeth. It was dressed in a bride's gown and had a long, deep scar on its side, within which was an enveloped letter. I have seen them. They live so sadly beneath you. Their pure glow in the murk is at once beautiful and terrifying to behold, like a dying angel. They begged Jack not to do this thing. Have you seen the eye in the wood? It is the reason you can never leave. Jack can leave. The eyes let Jack leave. We blame this thing, but pity its beauty. We must leave now. The children in the lake want to speak to me now. I think I shall return for them some day. What became Jack after this escape is unknown. No clues of his whereabouts were ever found. No footprints in the dirt, no torn hair tangled in a low tree branch. To anyone who stumbled into Lyeford unknowingly, it would be as though Jack's bloody touch had never graced the place at all. In 1838, following a severe earthquake, oil bled from the cracked earth beneath Lyeford. A wealthy New Yorker invested a considerable sum in setting an oil drill in Lyeford. This was seen by a poverty-stricken population as the town's brightest hour in years, and many became involved in the project. The employment rate rose vastly. For some time, Lyeford seemed to be reaching prosperous days. The town's happiness was, of course, nothing but temporary. On the frostbitten morning of January 6, 1840, the oil pocket beneath Lyeford was mysteriously ignited. The drill burst into a tower of flames which could be seen for miles. The blaze spread quickly, decimating several residences. Of the locals who attempted to control the flames, 15 were killed. John Garrow, former friend of the infamous Mad Jack Killer, died as he tried to save a young boy from the inferno. He was 79. The boy was 7. He also perished. The fire lasted 3 days until a torrential downpour diminished it, leaving behind only ash and the drill's skeletal form standing alone among blackened trees.